Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV.
And I'm Shelby, your co-host.
Let's gear for C and get underway. Most people suck at negotiations, even if they think they don't. So says today's podcast guest.
Negotiation is all about handling emotions in the moment, and how you do handle your emotions is why you may suck at negotiating.
You can be an experienced negotiator because you've done it many times, or a lucky negotiator who has managed to come out on top more often than not.
But none of those things help you navigate the minefield of emotions, which means that when those emotions come up in a negotiation, you're unprepared to handle them.
Today's podcast guest, Gaëtan Pellerin, believes that negotiations isn't about skills at negotiations, but about being able to perform under stress while you're experiencing those emotions.
Gaëtan Pellerin is the author of Mindful Negotiation, Becoming More Aware in the Moment, Conquering Your Ego, and Getting Everyone What They Really Want.
So greetings, Gaëtan Pellerin. Thanks for joining us today. Say hello to our listeners.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Richard and Shelby. Here's my book, Mindful Negotiation.
Yeah, let's see a copy. All right.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
There's nothing like good old-fashioned print to break through all of this smartphone nonsense. So congratulations on the book, and let's learn a little more about negotiating.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Gaëtan Pellerin, let's get to know you better. What made you want to write your book on mindful negotiations?
That's a great question. I had a science background when I was at school, so helping people working in the hospital. And after that, I started my career in sales, and I couldn't get any promotion faster than I wanted, and it was like never enough. And at one point, I changed my career and I became a negotiation consultant 11 years ago. And at the same time, I joined a personal growth group where I work a lot with ego and mindfulness and how to be in control of our emotion. And one morning, I just realized that there's a lot of books about negotiation, a lot of books about mindfulness, but not that many that merge the two together into an interesting topic for the readers. So I just thought that my contribution will be to use my experience, my own self-development, to help people getting better results and getting control of themselves in negotiation.
You got an interesting angle, because I have seen a lot of books on negotiation. It all kind of hinges on strategy and tactics and how to win negotiations that way. But it does come down to emotion, and when people get interacting back and forth, they kind of get pushed into the present moment, even if they don't realize it. And if you have all those thought out tactics and plans, but you don't get control of your emotions, you've got a good angle on this.
Yeah, you're totally right, Richard. I'm not saying that you don't need skills or you don't need methodology. Every book has their own profile. But even if you have everything that you just described, there's a missing component. And people, unfortunately, are unaware of it, and they don't know why they're not good negotiator. And most of us, we believe we're better negotiator than we actually are. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to look from outside the negotiation, looking in. It's like, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem, until it doesn't go as planned. Right. Until we feel we're unprepared, we're out of control, the stress level goes up, and everything goes too fast, and we feel we have no choices, and we just want to get out of here or get out of there as soon as possible.
Well, like they say, every plan is only good till the first shot. Well, negotiation skills are important, but why do you believe negotiation is more about ego? The skills are important.
Yeah.
It's more about ego.
So basically, negotiation, it's not necessarily about the skills and everything, but all of us were emotional people, right? So when we prepare for negotiation, we might be afraid to lose the deal, or we might be intimidated by the other person, or insecure about our own sense of competency, or worse, afraid of losing face internally. So there's always emotion going into the mix. And when we are emotional, we're not making good decisions. If you think about people that went through a divorce, it's not nice. There's nothing rational. There's no logic. People want to hurt the other side. It's a very explosive scenario. And when we are finding ourselves in that situation in negotiation, we're not at our best. We're risking to make deals that don't make sense. We accept to be bullied by the other side because a lot of things happen. And my belief is if you pay attention to what's going on in the moment, you can improve the deal that people are making.
So it does kind of come down to emotions detract you from sticking to a good plan and sticking with your tactics. It kind of, that's a good example you pulled out about marriage or divorce, because I think, you can easily relate to an emotional situation like that. It would be tough, to stick to a plan of for good negotiating.
Yeah, and Richard, everybody, it's a good negotiator when things are going well.
Yes. I think with negotiating, you can't make any assumptions coming in. You just have to stay present moment focused and not assume like it's going to go one way or the other. You just have to like be prepared and just kind of be prepared for what happens next. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question is, getting down to negotiating, what are the 4 biggest myths of negotiation?
That's an interesting. The first one for me is pretending that emotions are out of the equation. Right? We already talked about it, and it's like, okay, I'm prepared. I got trained. I got skill. I got methodology, and not understanding the power of emotion. Right? The first myth. Why is that? Because first of all, people don't take the time to prepare, and when they do prepare, they don't even put themselves in the other party's shoes. So it's all about themselves, and they're shocked when the proposal it's not accepted. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but the win-win concept is so much cliche because people feel like I have to compromise. If I'm negotiating with you, Richard, I have to give you half of what you want in order for me to get half of what I want. That's not what I'm referring here when I'm talking about being mindful. We need to understand what's the driver behind the behavior, why the emotion, right? And compromise, it's not a nice way to negotiate. It's never going to be able to grow the size of the pie. And we're just extracting value from that principle. The third myth in negotiation is...
So just back on the second myth, win-win isn't important, but the myth is that it shouldn't drive it's not something you want to drive the negotiation to be is like the only focus and the only goal.
Well, if you are looking to establish a partnership, you want to create value for both sides. So that's a real definition of a win. I don't know what's a win for you, Richard, or Shelby, if I negotiate with you. I can pretend I know what you want. I can throw money at you. But until I understand your driver, your motivation, your pain point, your constraint, there is no way for me I can package something that will be interesting for you.
Well, Shelby just wants more money.
Yes.
Her negotiation's simple.
Well,
very simple.
So that's another myth, actually. Negotiation, it's not about money. And
It's
Shelby,
not?
no. So let me finish that.
By telling her that.
When people negotiate their salary, obviously they ask for money. But the real motivation behind it is to establish our self-worth, our contribution, right? Somebody says, no, I cannot give you the salary the raise you are looking for. We take it personal. It's our own self-assessment. So yes, money, it's part of the deal. It's always part of the deal. But there is always something else that it's deeper, a different motivation than just money.
Have you heard this point about money that it's not a motivator, but what's the term? It can be a dismotivator.
It is.
That,
It is.
and that it could be something you could get dissatisfied about, but it's not really something that you'll be satisfied over. Is that kind of maybe a way of looking at money?
It is. And let's take Shelby's example. She wants money. Let's say, for example, I'm offering you to double your salary right now. And she goes, yes, shake hands. I guarantee you, Shelby, tonight you'll talk to your husband, your spouse, and say, hey, look what I did. But you realize, oh, Gaetan never pushed back on me. So maybe I could have asked for more. Or me, that was too easy. So yes, money, it's part of the equation, but if you really want to have a good win-win, there's something else behind money. It's achieving prestige, it's our self-recognition, our self-worth, and most negotiators don't do a good job of probing and uncovering those elements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you get through all 4 myths then? Were you able to?
Yeah, I think that the fourth one is really, we're not enjoying negotiation and we just get as quick as soon as possible out of it. Most people do their concession and they go straight to their limit, in one shot. So that means what? That means I just want to be done with it. I just want to have a deal, regardless how good the deal is. We just want to get rid of that situation that it's not fun because we didn't prepare properly before the negotiation, tackling our own emotion.
Also, a good point there. If you prepare better, you'll like to negotiate. Then it'll be more of an enjoyable process.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Well, now that we've shattered some of the mess, Galen, what are 4 simple steps to close more negotiation deals?
Well, first of all, is to be aware of how we feel and how we can feel if somebody's yelling at us, if somebody's interrupting us, or something goes wrong. So really, in the planning stage, putting ourselves on the table, if you want, and observing our reaction. The second thing is we need to be curious. Most negotiators do what? Persuasion. Right? We have an argument with our loved one. We do what? We persuade, we want to be right. But every time we speak, we're not gaining any knowledge about the other side. So it becomes a one-way conversation, right? So that's the second piece, is really being curious. And sometimes people are afraid to share information because they feel like if they hang on to that information, it's a source of power. So I have to be clever to ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. The third element for me that is really crucial is to get better deal. Somebody reject our proposal. What do we do next, right? Because if my first proposal will be accepted, that means I left money on the table. So what do I need to do when the proposal is rejected? Most of us as negotiators, we keep persuading, we keep selling our proposal. Let me repeat one more time to make sure you get it. But the problem we're facing is when people reject our proposal, it means that it doesn't deliver value enough for them. We didn't address their issue. So when the proposal is rejected, we need to understand exactly, specifically, what's working and what's not working. And now it's about brainstorming solution versus persuading. And the fourth areas where we can improve closing deal is most people on the buying side are trained to wait last minute to make demand. Oh, one more thing. Or could you throw that in the mix? That means what? That means that we're doing concession toward the end of the negotiation and we're just eroding our margin because that's a tactic. So basically, trading until the end, that's the best way to improve any deal on the table.
So to pull that nugget out, that's a good one, that at the end, after the negotiations are supposedly done, that can be a time when someone tries to get more.
Totally.
You're so thankful you got the negotiation done that you agree to things that you think back on them, boy, I should have said no on that. So just be sensitive when you get to the end of the negotiations.
Yeah, and when you're getting close to the finish line, you can feel it. You're happy. You work hard. You're already relaxing. They say you're ready to celebrate. And now they're coming with a demand. The last thing you want to do from an emotional perspective is to say no and lose that deal. So people are not aware that this is one of the most common tactics, to wait last minute, just before the signature or even after, to get one more thing from you. And most people don't know how to tackle that.
Yeah, and I like also what you said, and I got to pay attention to them. Well, I've been told I talk too much. You got to be, what are you laughing about, Shelby?
You have to be it's self-aware.
All right, so you got to talk enough to get the other party talking, but you got to remember to be a good listener.
Totally, absolutely.
Definitely. Going back to your earlier points, you might have answered this, but when negotiating, like, how do you become like more aware in the moment and thus like conquer your ego, not immediately like go to your jump reaction to say no or yes to something? How do you become like more aware? Is there something
you can remember so that when you don't get into the heat of things, you remember to go back to controlling your ego and conquering it?
Yeah. So basically, it's a two-step approach. The first step is to prepare, right? So let's take, for example, somebody has to deliver a bad news. A bad news can be a price increase, I don't have any inventory, or anything else. In our head, nobody likes to deliver bad news, right? So we play scenario when we go home, my God, what if Richard is upset? What if Shelby is pissed off? And we go into a negotiation with that frame of mind, and it just changed our language. We're not confident, we're hesitant. So basically, it's how can I just ground myself to deliver the message in a way that it's assertive, but not aggressive, right? Assertive means I express my need and I care about you. Aggressive means I express my need and I don't care about you. Right? So that's the key for me. And as a consultant, I always sit with my people, my client, and say, tell me what you want to tell your customer or your vendor. Practice with me. And it's amazing when people remove that fear or that anxiety, and they are able to deliver the message in the right way. And I'm telling them that's what you should do. Exactly, not connecting with fear, but really being confident. And one thing that is really helpful is when we deliver a bad news, we don't own the other person's reaction, right? But we do own to have empathy with them. But if they are upset, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. I'm, willing to work with you in that moment. So a lot of preparation will be super helpful to help us how to react if there's a curveball into the negotiation.
So be empathetic, but to pull out a nugget you said there is you want to be assertive but not aggressive.
Yes.
And to be able to keep on message and to deliver that assertiveness, practicing through it and rehearsing so that you can, you're confident in the message, and that'll help you be more assertive.
Absolutely. And the more we practice, the more we do mock or repeat practice run, the more we are able to pivot in the moment when stuff doesn't go as planned, right? And in the negotiation, we can feel the tension, right? So if we pay attention to our body, our chest is tightening, our jaws there's a lot of tension, our breathing change, we're hot, we're cold. So really, in the negotiation, the ability to pay attention to what's going on inside of us is really the key about what's going to happen next. Do I keep myself in control, or am I just giving up control to my own emotion? So the ability to be present and really connecting with what's happening in ourselves, it's the key to be able to pivot and turn.
And a lot of that just revolves around that being in the present moment.
Totally.
What you're trying to say so that you can better anticipate.
Yeah, be mindful about what's going on in our body, and be mindful about if I feel I have no choice, there's always another choice. If I feel I have no power, there's always a way to shift power. And I feel I don't know what to do, let's take a time out and come back next week. There's always an option for us. We never have to agree in the moment.
Yeah, it just reminds me of something I heard about negotiating where it's the deal's never closed until it's closed. I mean, a lot of people go into negotiations and they think they've got the deal closed, but then something, that final 5% somehow creeps up. And
Totally.
I guess they say that a deal is at no greater risk of falling apart than it is at the end. I don't know, you ever thought about that?
And actually, it's true, because the close step is the area negotiation where we feel the most vulnerable as a negotiator, because we accomplish so much. We're that close, and we don't want to lose the sight of that finish line. And we're just prepared to do anything we can to get the deal. So yes, you're right, Richard. It's the last 5%, 2%. This is where people are taking advantage of the other side because of that vulnerability at the last minute.
Well, I love this question, Galen. So when negotiating, how do you get everyone what they really want?
Very good question. And it's going back to be curious. So let's go back to Shelby wanting more money. We think that's her driver. But if we dig a little bit closer, she might want to get a status, she might want to have an apartment, she might want to be autonomous.
Yep.
The money becomes a strategy to achieve something else.
Sure.
And in negotiation, the trick here is to really focus on what's the driver behind that demand. If somebody wants to have all the power, I will tell them, are we negotiating, or are you just imposing your will? Because that's not a negotiation if it's only in one way. So the ability to be mindful and give everybody what they want. Everybody wants something. I want to save face with my boss. I want to make my bonus this year. I want to go to vacation. I want to move and buy another house or a bigger car. Or I want to be recognized as my boss for the next promotion. There is always something related to that person. In addition of what we're currently negotiating a deal, we negotiate at work, we negotiate with our family, at home, with our kids, spouse, loved one, or spending our days negotiating, influencing people. And we do a poor job because we don't understand the real motivation of the other side. We make a lot of assumptions.
Empathy could be a good part of that. Expressing that empathy can be a good way of, someone feels more satisfied with the way you're approaching them, in a way you're kind of giving them what they want. Well, it helps down that road. Because I like where you brought up empathy, and I think that's an important point, trying to weave it into some of the points you're bringing here.
And it's a good segue also, Richard, because you can use empathy when it's not going well. Imagine going to a meeting and somebody's yelling at you and you go, "Oh, Richard, you look like you're angry this morning. Is there anything I can do to help you?" I just diffuse the tension because there's no way I can negotiate with somebody.
I just got to get on my medication first. And then...
Well, now, do you have your medication? Do you need help to get it? So we're talking about fixing something versus just arguing about something else. So yes, empathy, it's always part of it. Somebody doesn't want to share information with me, I'll say it. It sounds like you're not prepared to share information with me today. And if you don't do it, it will be really difficult for me to give you the best proposal. That's not aggressive, but that's very assertive because this is where I'm coming from. But my objective is to deliver value for every party at the negotiation table. And to deliver value, I need to know what's the definition of win for them, or what's the definition of failure, so we can avoid that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. These a lot of great points. So going further, do you have any further advice on how we can obtain that ever-exclusive goal of a win-win negotiation?
Well, my last point to recap is don't trust your assumption. Test your assumption and spend more time thinking about the other side versus telling your own story.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Gaëtan Pellerin, this has been a great discussion on learning that we don't have to say negotiating sucks. Do you have any final points you would like to share?
No, it's just to really connect with what's going on inside and understand that we're two people negotiating and our job is to deliver value for both sides or every party. And we cannot do that if we use our favorite strategy, which is persuasion.
Well, now I've got to negotiate with Shelby over her salary now. We opened up that can of worms. So
we'll have a conversation later. Yeah, we'll talk later. No worries. Well, Gaëtan Pellerin, thank you for being with us today on the Home Business Podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
To learn more about Gaëtan Pellerin and his book, Mindful Negotiation, please visit navigatesgroup.com or our podcast website for more information on guests.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at our website, homebusinessmag.com.
Visit the website for information on advertising, subscribe to our newsletter, read our home business-based startup guide, and for more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or homebusinessexpo.com.
I'm Richard Captain Henderson saying, anchors away.
We'll talk with you soon. Until then.
Make it a great home-based biz day.